Well, former Congressman Ron Paul is a revered figure among libertarian-minded Americans, and I had the opportunity to talk to him about economic issues in the news today. Now, last month, Carrier, a leading American manufacturer of heating and air conditioning systems, said that it would keep more than 1,000 jobs in Indiana, following pressure from President-elect Donald Trump. A Politico poll found that 60% of all voters view Donald Trump more favorably as a result of that deal. Now, 89% of Trump voters feel the same. That's not a huge surprise. But I asked the former congressman whether he agreed with those American voters, and take a look at what he had to say.
Well, I agree that it was a good political maneuver. He did what he wanted, and it looks like it's a modest success. It wasn't what he promised, but you know, he was going to save 2,100 jobs, and he saves 1,000. And it was used in a political sense of being very favorable. But if I look at it a little bit deeper and what's going on, you know, I have some pros and cons. One, there was some involvement with the state government saying, we're going to give you a tax break and promise you that if you stay, we're going to get you $7 million over 10 years, which seems like peanuts. But it was a maneuvering that got Carrier, which is United Technology, actually do something that they obviously did not think it was in their best interest, you know, just a few weeks ago, but they went along with it. And you might say, why did they go along with it if this is not real significant, if they didn't get to 2,100 jobs, and it was more for building up popularity in a political sense? Why did they do it, or what was the leverage? Well, I think the leverage is very clear. United Technologies depends on contracts. I mean, I think there's $23 billion of military contracts. As a matter of fact, they had a new contract even in December for several $1 million dealing with F-35. So I think last year they had $6 billion. So we have a tremendous amount of leverage, and there's a lot of power with the president to deal with that. So if you're doing deals and you have that kind of money to make deals, you can get people to do certain things. So yeah. I'm less excited about it, but I would certainly promote the whole idea of a better tax structure. Right. I would do much more. I would really slash taxes, encourage people to stay here.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I mean, what you said seems very accurate, that a lot of optics is at play here, and that was really part of him making this deal. And you mentioned, you know, United Technologies, the parent company. Interestingly, the CEO of that company said just recently on another news program, he said that point blank, you know, we are going to have to drive down costs as a result of keeping those jobs here in America, and that means more automation. So a lot of people are questioning, are we really saving any jobs here?
Well, in the long term, you can't really tell. If jobs are replaced by some modern technology, people get very frightened. If it's just that, just modern technology, usually those jobs go someplace else, and just because there's a change. But yes, he will have to. They had made a calculation. It was in their interest. But I would like to see that long term, not next month, and there's no way to promise this, is it should be beneficial to a company to stay. But that's why if I had been in a position of advising or participating in this debate, I would say concentrate on a 15% tax on capital gains and on corporate profits, and that would have been cutting down on costs. That's what we want. But other people go to technology. If wages go up and they can't afford it, they have to act in the best interest of their company. They have to make profits and take care of their stockholders. And if there's a bad situation here business-wise, those conditions have to be changed. So that's quite a bit different than sort of badgering people into doing what we want on the spur of the moment.
Yeah. A lot of people say, you know, much has been made about all of the jobs we're losing overseas, but we're not paying a lot of attention to the technology and the automation that's really potentially a job killer in the future. But let me go back to the poll that I mentioned, the Politico poll, because another interesting statistic to come out of that is that the majority of Americans believe it's acceptable for the president to work with specific private companies. Now, you just alluded to the fact that you don't think it's okay. Tell me why it's problematic to see Trump, as you call it, interfere in the free market.
Well, because it's interfering with the free market. I'm a believer in voluntary trade. I don't believe in managed trade. I don't believe in these managed, international organizations. But if it's managed by individuals where there's a powerful government force that can interfere, if there's problem, you correct the problem, but you don't allow, one individuals to sort of threaten. And some of Trump's terminology was, sort of a threat. If you do that, if you move overseas, well, where did we ever give the power to the president to threaten somebody that wants to move overseas? What you do as a representative of the people, we say, well, why do you want to leave overseas? Well, the conditions are bad, and you made them that way. It's the government's fault. So it's then up to the government to change those conditions as response, but not for them to be threatened and say, we're going to do such and such, and we're going to say, all right, if you don't do it, we're going to raise taxes on you. I want to offer lower taxes, but he wants to say, well, if you don't do what we tell you, we're going to put taxes of 35% on the imports, which who's that going to hurt? Our consumers. The market is supposed to always protect the consumer. So if you get threatened with high taxes, you put these people in a bind. It's way too much power for a president to have. A president should be, motivated to move to a freer market and let people provide the best product at the best price, and that's how you would have a healthy economy.
And do you think a policy like that, a tariff of 35% on companies who want to move their operations abroad, do you think that could start a trade war?
Yeah, I really do, and that's why I'm very much opposed to tariffs, punitive tariffs and manipulating. Yes, that can. And it's avoiding the real problem. How can you see it's so inconsistent? As a libertarian, I want to try to be as consistent as possible. If I want to lower taxes to help the businessman be competitive, why should I threaten them with higher taxes if they don't do exactly what we say? Maybe there's other circumstances. Maybe in a very healthy economy, somebody might decide for some reason, well, I'm going to move my business overseas. Well, in a free country, you're supposed to be able to do that. And one of the definitions for a libertarian about a free country is you're free to leave when you want. When you were in the Soviet system, people weren't free to leave. So this is a big difference. When you're not free to leave, you've lost a certain amount of freedom. And if there's a problem, which there is, I don't deny there isn't a problem, but it's up to the government to correct the problems that they created. Excessive taxation, excessive regulation, but intimidations and threats, I do not believe that is a proper function for our government, whether it's the Congress or the courts or the president.